So it's another week and I've not got much further. We realised at the weekend that although I'd sent the right dimensions to IKEA, originally they'd got them wrong, and when I updated them, I updated the plan, sent that over, but then when someone else took over the whole order, they reverted back to the old wrong dimensions. So I've ended up with a gap bigger than I wanted. So we ordered another unit and I was able to get that for delivery next day, which was fine. It was ordered on the Sunday, but for some reason they can't deliver the legs for the cabinets. So unless you get a big truck delivery, which is ridiculous because, you know, they're tiny. So we had to go to IKEA on a Sunday, which was hellish. So I didn't really vlog it because there were just so many people. And then when we ordered them, we had to get a bit of paper and then even drive across the road to another warehouse, which was then blocked by roadworks. And we had to walk around an industrial estate and stuff because we missed the diversion. And that was a whole thing. So here we are. So I've got another unit to build today. Then I am going to talk a little bit about substitutions because I know lots of people want to understand how to substitute ingredients in the formulas I share a bit better, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to make a magnesium body lotion because that seems to be a thing at the moment and my arthritis needs it. So that's what we're doing today. Hope you enjoy this video. Okay, I've made this spreadsheet and this is downloadable for patrons. If you're on Patreon, you get this for free and it'll just be a little Excel download for you. And what it aims to do is to help you figure out how to substitute ingredients, because I know a lot of you live in different countries. You won't necessarily have access to some of the actives or some of the ingredients that I can get hold of in the UK. And so you might want to substitute something. Now, I get the question, what can I substitute for, multiple times a day, and it does get a bit tiring, I'll be honest, because all I do is Google and then I do the research for you. And I haven't got time to keep doing that and helping people to that capacity. So what I want to do is help you all be better formulators and be able to confidently substitute things for yourself. So obviously I'm still there to help, but I do want you to try and look for yourself as well, because it does help you find new ingredients and sort of get used to what works and what doesn't, rather than just asking and then getting an answer. It doesn't really move you forward in your formulation journey. So what we're going to do here is go through a simple formula to show you how I would go about substituting ingredients if I needed to. On the left hand side, I've got original formula. So this would be a formula that you found on the internet or one of mine that you've got from Patreon. And then I've just listed the ingredient, the percentage and the function of the ingredient to start off with. So this just, I've put what the product is there. So we'll just say this is a generic lotion. This isn't tested, this is just an example. We've got distilled water, glycerin and mica in our phase A. This is our water phase, which is the colour, the humectant and the sort of base dilutant. Then if we move down to phase B, we've got shea butter, jojoba oil, emulsifying wax NF and some cetyl alcohol. So that's 2 emollient moisturising ingredients an emulsifier, and a stabiliser, thickener, feel enhancer. Then we go down to phase C, which is our cool down phase, and we've got some cherry fragrance oil for scent, some phenoxyethanol EHG, which is our preservative, and some vitamin E as an antioxidant. And then I've added a couple of actives just at the bottom here as examples of how you can substitute actives, because they're the most asked or most requested substitutes I get. And I've got some remodelling intents here and some green tea extract, two things that I've been asked about recently. If we go up to the top, obviously I've got all the percentages used, I've got the function of the ingredient, and then I've got some usage and compatibility notes. And this is where you go to the ingredient that you want to substitute, and you find it with your supplier or just a supplier that I link, and you look up everything about it. So what is the usage rate? What is the texture like? What's its purpose? What's the pH? What solubility is it? And then from that, you can find a possible substitute. So what I've done here is give possible substitutes in this column, give the function of the substitute, the usage rate and any sort of compatibility notes about that substitute, what phase we'd put the substitute in, and then once we've decided on all of this, we can create our new formulation over here on the right. So I'll go through these line by line. For distilled water, obviously you can use water up to 100%. It's compatible with aqueous formulations because it's water, and it has a pH of approximately 7. So what could you replace water with? Well, you can lower or you can increase the oil, the water, if you want a different viscosity to your product. Or you could replace all or some of the water with a hydrolase, such as rose, orange or lavender. Or you could replace part of the water with some aloe vera juice, or you could do a combination of some water, hydrolase and aloe vera. So those are your possible substitutes. The functions of the substitute, again, would still be to act as a base, solvent, diluent, but also perhaps if you were wanting to add aloe vera, that would be there to provide a soothing, cooling or moisturising property. Same as the hydrolase, to be sort of a moisturising, soothing ingredient, but then that could also add a little bit of natural scent, perhaps if you were omitting the fragrance oil. So think about why you'd want to replace some or all of the water and what with. For the purpose of this, I've decided to add a hydrolase, and we're going to add some rose hydrolase. I'm going to do just a small percentage of the water as the hydrolase and then the most water. You can do literally whatever you want depending on what results you want to get from it. Remember, if you're replacing with any aloe vera juice, that will change the pH, so you'll need to consider pH adjustment at the end of making your product. So that's the water. Then we've got glycerin, which is a humectant. And this is very thick, it's clear, it can be quite sticky, so you may want to change it for something that's thinner and perhaps less sticky, such as propanediol. So you look at the percentage usage rates for propanediol, in what range it's best used for the type of product you're making. You can find this all on supplier websites. It's water soluble. It will also enhance preservative efficacy, so that's another bonus we get from using that. And it will just produce a slightly thinner product, but I don't mind that because I'm going to be changing some other ingredients later on to up the viscosity a bit. So we're going to put propanediol here. Other humectants you could use could perhaps be hyaluronic acid or sodium lactate, but again, check your usage rates because it's unlikely you'd be using the 5. You'd probably lower that down and add to the water phase to compensate. Then I'm putting colour in the water phase. I do this because if I'm using mica, I like to mix it with a humectant first because it helps disperse it. If you don't want to use mica, you could just omit it, or you could change it to a different colour. Just check that it's suitable for the type of product you're making. Some micas contain colour pigments that are not safe for lips, for example, so just check your usage. Moving on to phase B. So shea butter is a natural soft butter. You can get refined and unrefined available. The unrefined has a bit of an unwanted raw scent. It has quite a low melting point, high polarity. It can be quite greasy, but it is great for moisturising dry skin. A good alternative if you want a less greasy butter with similar properties is mango butter. So we could substitute for that. But I also want to add a little bit more viscosity to this because I took it away by swapping glycerin for propanediol. So in order to do that, I'm going to replace it with a bit of mango butter and a little bit of cocoa butter. Obviously look at the benefits that you supposedly get from each butter and pick them according to that as well. But cocoa butter is a harder butter, whereas mango butter is very similar to shea butter, so it'll sort of balance out, and the cocoa butter will help add that viscosity back in, and you also get the benefits from the cocoa butter. Jojoba oil. If you don't want to use this and you want something that sort of reduces the greasiness, maybe improves glide, you could swap it for a lighter oil. You could even use an ester. Something like C12 to 15 alkyl benzoate is really lovely in lotions. It really enhances the feel. If you want to be all natural, then you can do what I'm doing here. And I'm replacing some of it with camellia oil, which is a lightweight oil. And this is also clear, pretty much clear as well. Whereas golden jojoba oil, which I have, is very yellow, so the colour of the product will be altered slightly. That's another reason to perhaps change your oils. And I'm also using a bit of Eco Silk, which is sort of a natural silicone alternative, which will improve slip and glide. And so I've put them in there, and then I've divided that 5% between the two of them. You can do that whatever proportion makes sense to you. Then we go to the emulsifying wax. Emulsifying wax NF is quite popular, but some people do find it soaps, and also some people can't get it. You may want to change it for something else you have. You may want Ecomulse if you want an eco-friendly option, or if you want a more conditioning lotion, then you can use a cationic emulsifier such as BTMS 50. You just need to check that the ingredients are compatible, because obviously it has a cationic charge, so you don't want any incompatible ingredients because some ingredients do have charges. The function of the substitute would to be more conditioning and improve skin feel, but we still want it to be more lightweight. So instead of BTMS 50, I'm going to go for BTMS 25, which I feel is a slightly lighter weight emulsifier but still has those conditioning properties. And we're going to add that in. We're going to do it around the same percentage because it's usually around 25% of the total oil phase. But then I've added a little bit because I want quite a lot of viscosity to this lotion. Then as a stabiliser, co-emulsifier, thickener, we've got cetyl alcohol. I'm not going to change this. We could change it for cetyl alcohol maybe, if you want like a fluffier, more satin-like texture. Or if you want to change this lotion into a shaving cream and have more of a creamy lather and a thicker product, you could maybe change stearic acid. The only thing I'm changing about this is the fact that I'm going to use less cetyl alcohol. What we're going to do is reduce this from 2 to 1, and then we'll just add the extra percentage to the water phase up there. Then we come down to the cool down. We have cherry fragrance oil. I might not want cherry, I might want something else. The cherry fragrance oil contains allergens. I may want something allergen free. So just find another fragrance you like, check the IFRA usage guide, check the allergen sheet, and if it matches what you need, add that in. And I'm doing it at the same percentage. You may need less or you may want more depending on the one you choose. Just add or subtract the water phase to counteract it, or even the oil phase given that it is an oil. Then we'll go to preservative. I'm not going to change this one. I really like this and it's a low percentage, so it's quite cost effective. But if you need an eco preservative or something else, just check pH range it works in. compatibility with charges, compatibility with other ingredients, heat tolerance, pH, etc. And you should be fine swapping it out. Just make sure it's broad spectrum and it's effective against mould, fungi and yeast. Then we go to vitamin E, which is an antioxidant. This is different from the other vitamin E. You want tocopherol, not acetate. It's not a preservative, it just helps delay the rancidity of oils. I add it into lotions and various other things that contain oils. You can omit it and replace it with more jojoba oil or another oil that's rich in vitamin E anyway, or keep it. Whatever you want to do, I'm keeping it, so there's no sub for that one. And now for the actives that I added. What we're going to do is look at remodelling intents first, because this is one I've had questions about from people in the USA. I get this from aromantic.co.uk. So the first port of call would be to go there. So we find it on the Aromantic website, and then we just read everything we possibly can about what it is, how to use it, everything that's on here, so that we know what it does and what it's suitable for use in, and the usage rates, what solubility it is, what the heat tolerance is, what it works well with, what you can combine it with for better effect, etc. And then we'll go over to a website in your country, so in this case in the United States, and we'll look at anti-aging products, because essentially that's what it is. And you could go through all of these different ingredients and just see what they do and see what effect they might have that could be like that. So let's just click on one and see what that might do. So let's go and search for something. So you can search for the type of product that you want to find. So in this case, let's go for plumping. And then this one has caught my eye. If you're making a lip product, then this may be a good substitute for that product in a lip product, because it has a plumping effect, similar kind of thing. But since it is a lotion, we're going to keep looking and find something else that goes with it a bit better. And I can see here line fill looks like that could be a wrinkle filling, and yes it is. It's wrinkle filler and lip plumper active. So this pretty much does similar to what our remodelling intents does. It's not got exactly the same extract in it, I don't think. We'll just go and check, see what the INCI is and compare it. Pretty much the same base, but it has different actives in it. But I'd say, given the usage rate and the solubility and all of the information about it, I'd say this is a good substitute. Now back to our spreadsheet. We've got our remodelling intents substituted with line fill. Remodelling intents was 2%, line fill is 2.5%. So we need to add that to the cool down phase, and we need to adjust our water to compensate for the extra 5%. And that is how you would add that in instead of that. Now I've got green tea extract here. If you're going for a wrinkle cream, you wouldn't necessarily need anti-inflammatory ingredients in there. They're kind of, we're not going for an acne product and a wrinkle fill product at the same time, but I just wanted to give an example because those are two of the most popular products that we sort of get asked for. So the green tea extract, it's soothing and anti-inflammatory for conditions such as acne. And you may want to swap this out for another extract, in which case you could Google extracts, see what's available in your suppliers' websites and see what conditions they are said to help. Or you might want to omit it and add in something different that does similar things. So if you're targeting acne, for instance, instead of using green tea extract, you may actually want to go for niacinamide, because it has similar properties, but it's supposedly more effective. Niacinamide is to reduce inflammation and helps to regulate the acne causing oils in the skin, and you'd use it around 2 to 5% ideally. I'm going to go for 3 for this substitution, And this doesn't go in the cool down phase. This would then go in the water phase because it needs to be dissolved. pH is a bit of a debate at the moment whether you need a certain type of niacinamide for a certain type of pH, or if pH doesn't matter at all. So you'd need to read up on exactly the niacinamide that you've bought and what the manufacturer's instructions are for that, because there may be some pH adjusting to be done or there may not be. So because I'm using this at a higher percentage than originally in the formula, I just add that on and then deduct from the water phase. And it's really that simple. You just look at the function of the product that I'm using or the formula that you found is using, and then see what category it comes under in your supplier, in the supplier's website. Go to your supplier's website and look under that category. And if you can't find the same ingredient, look for something with similar functions, similar properties, or that has the properties that you desire instead. And then just look at how to use that, what phase it goes in, what pH it needs. Check it in this table if it's compatible with the other ingredients. And if it is, add it to your formula over on the right here. And you can create a completely different formula based off what I've done with your own substitutions that will be your own, and just experiment with that. If it doesn't quite work, try it again with something else and just keep experimenting, because that's how we become better formulators. And as I've always said, don't be afraid of failing, because that's the best way to learn about ingredients and stuff that works and that doesn't. That's it on the little substituting ingredients lesson. I am going to put this PDF, like I said, is going to be linked below on Patreon, along with a Word document that also details sort of ways to substitute ingredients and best practice for sort of learning how to do that and things like that. So if you're a member of Patreon, you can go grab that for free. If you're not, then you can join Patreon via the link below. And now I think we're going to go and make some magnesium lotion. We're in the kitchen because there's literally nowhere else for me to work, because you saw the other room. So I'm going to start making on the kitchen island. I have covered it in biodegradable cling film so that I don't ruin it. And I'm going to make the magnesium cream. This is the first time I've made it, so I don't know if it's actually going to work well or not. Some things to note about magnesium lotion. First of all, you want magnesium chloride, not magnesium hydroxide. Magnesium hydroxide is the antibacterial ingredient which you'd use in a deodorant, whereas magnesium chloride is basically a salt, and that is what gives you sort of pain relief and sort of just has many benefits. I'll put that all in the PDF that will be available on Patreon. Also, you need to watch your emulsifier, because magnesium chloride is an ionic charged ingredient, so you can't put it with cationic emulsifiers. And I have read, after a lot of research, that sun in my eye, that it's better off with a non-ionic emulsifier, so that's what I'm using because I want maximum stability. Also, I see a lot of stuff online about people having trouble with the emulsion splitting after they've made it, and other people are saying, oh, well, you know, just mix it for longer, you're not emulsifying for long enough. Having done research on some chemist forums, which I would link below, but they required a login to view the posts, so you wouldn't be able to see it anyway. So just Google it for yourself and some things will come up, and if you want to join these forums, you can join them. But basically, a chemist on there said if you add your magnesium oil, which we'll make before we do our lotion, to the cool down phase, but you cool it not to 40 degrees but to room temperature. Make sure it's at room temperature, and then you're hand stirring or with an overhead stirrer whilst you're adding that really slowly, so you're not shear mixing at that point. It should be stable, it should stay as an emulsion, and you shouldn't have any breaking, like separating issues. So we're going to check that today. pH wise, some people say between a 6 and a 7. I think that relates to a different type of magnesium, so I think they may be getting confused. Other people say between a 4.6 and a 5.8 or something. So we're going to see where this falls and just roll with it, I think, as a bit of an experiment. But all of this information and more, and the formula and everything, will be available in PDF form on Patreon, along with that substitution spreadsheet that I just went through as well. So let's get making, and I hope you enjoy this. I hope it solves some of your magnesium lotion problems, and we'll see how it turns out. So the first thing we need to do is make our magnesium oil. It is actually water, but it's called an oil because of the oily feeling it has after it's been made. And to make a magnesium oil is fairly simple. You need 50% magnesium chloride and 50% distilled water. I'm adding the magnesium chloride now to hot water that has been in a water bath. Once I've added that, I'm going to add it back into the water bath and just stir it gently to dissolve all the magnesium chloride. And you'll see it very readily dissolves in hot water. And this is what we'll use for our finished lotion. We just need to make sure it's all dissolved, and then we'll leave it to cool to room temperature, like I mentioned earlier, before it's added to the lotion. So this is one of the last things that we'll be adding to our formulation. And you can just see it's really readily dissolving as it's warming up. While it cools, we're going to prepare the lotion base. So first of all, I've got some vegetable glycerin in a beaker, and to that I'm adding some distilled water. This is the rest of the water that isn't added to the magnesium lotion. And then I'm just going to stir that round to make sure that all the glycerin is incorporated properly in the water and put to one side. Then we can work on the oil phase, for which I have Kapuasu butter and some castor oil. And the reasons for my choices will all be in the PDF available on Patreon. And then we need an emulsifier. Like I said, you need a non-ionic emulsifier, supposedly, to make this as stable as possible. And also I like this particular one, which is glycerol stearate PEG 100, because it doesn't change the viscosity. It makes quite a thin lotion. So we're then adding some cetyl alcohol to increase the viscosity of it, which the oils and butters will also do. So we have a bit more control with an emulsifier like that. And then this last thing I'm adding is olive oil. The oils I've chosen because I've heard they're good for arthritis pain, they're good for muscle and joint pain. Whether there's any truth in that, I don't know, but you know what all these benefits seem to be claimed with all of these ingredients. Without proper studies, we'll never know. So we're going to put these in a water bath, melt them down, make sure they're around the same temperature, replace any water lost to evaporation. You should have weighed your water phase before you put it in the water bath. Sorry, should have mentioned that. I'm trying to catch up with the video. And then you can shear mix. Once it's at emulsion, do not shear mix again. Just stir by hand. This is very thin at the moment, but it will thicken up as it cools down. And as with our magnesium oil, we now need to let this cool to not 40 degrees like usual, but room temperature. So let it come completely down to room temperature. You'll know it's room temperature because when you go to take the temperature of them later on, you will see they should both be the same. Because room temperature will be a certain temperature, they should both be that temperature. So in the meantime, we're going to put our magnesium oil. We're going to weigh out what we need for the lotion and put the rest in this bottle. And we can store this for up to 12 months. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The rest of it is in here. And now we've got down to room temperature. You can see I'm taking the temperature of both, and they are both exactly the same temperature. So this is how we know we've got to room temperature, because they are the same. And we're going to pour our magnesium oil into our cooled down lotion whilst stirring just a little bit at a time. Because like I said earlier, this is what I've read stops the emulsion from breaking. So just a little bit at a time and keep stirring by hand or use an overhead stirrer. Do not shear mix at this point because you could end up breaking the emulsion by like over shear mixing it basically. Once all that's incorporated, I probably could have put this in before or at the same time, but I didn't want to risk it. So I'm adding the rest of my cool down ingredients now and then stirring them in by hand the same way. And for those, I've used horse chestnut extract, Saligard PCG for my preservative and some vitamin E. And then taking the pH came in at 5.7. So I think I'm going to leave it like that and see how we go. It's a bit inconsistent what pH you need for this, so we'll leave it at that and see what it's like. This is just an experiment. Then I added some arrowroot powder. This just counters the greasiness from the other ingredients and the magnesium oil. It went on nicely. There was a little bit of soaping, but I think that was the sweaty hands from being in gloves rather than the actual lotion. It goes on nice, it absorbed really, really fast, and my skin feels very, very soft afterwards. And most importantly, I didn't have that tingling or stinging feeling that you can sometimes get from magnesium chloride. If you were to use the magnesium oil as it was, which you can do if you want, it's perfectly safe, but it can irritate or give sort of a stinging irritation feeling to some people. So bear that in mind. The reason for putting it in a lotion is so that it's a bit more gentle. I am pleased so far. So I am going to come back to this tomorrow because I do want to see if it actually does stay together and it doesn't separate after like a day or 24 hours. Because most people with that issue have said it happens quite quickly. But we have a beautiful, beautiful lotion consistency, which I can't show you without tipping it everywhere, but you would have seen it just now anyway. Yeah, so I would say that works quite well so far. So we'll cut to tomorrow and see if it actually did. Oh, and a quick note about preservatives before anyone asks. The remaining magnesium oil, I just put in a little bottle. This will be good on a shelf for probably roughly about 12 months, I've read. You don't need a preservative because essentially magnesium chloride is a salt, high salt content, it's sort of self-preserving. The lotion, however, isn't self-preserving because the level of salt that you've got in it from this is not enough to preserve all the other ingredients, so I would include a preservative in that, unless you're intending to have a very, very high magnesium chloride inclusion. But because of the sensitivity, sort of irritation that people can get from it, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd just use a preservative. It is the next day. Yes, I know, same shirt. I know I'm scummy. I don't care. I'm at home. I work at home. I'm not seeing anyone today. My car, if you want an update on my car, you probably don't. But it did sort of, it needed more doing to it than we thought. So we didn't bother getting it sort of to pass its MOT. We're going to take it off road and it's going to be a bit of a project car for us. And our new one, I think, arrives in a couple of weeks anyway. So I feel a bit stranded at the moment, but I do, you know, I can get a lift places if I want to. And, you know, I'm at home, I'm not seeing anyone. So same shirt it is. That's enough of that. The lotion, you probably want to see the lotion. So next day, without getting it on my laptop because I'm editing at the moment, the texture is pretty much the same as we left it yesterday, and it has not separated as yet. And I realise 24 hours is not an ideal length of time to test stability because, you know, you want to do freeze thaw. If you have a centrifuge, then chuck it through that and see if it separates. But given that most people were finding the emulsion was breaking while they were making it, I feel like we've had a success there. So if you are making a magnesium lotion, whether you follow my recipe or you have your own recipe, just try adding a bit more water. So don't have the magnesium hydroxide as your entire water phase. Have a bit more water on top of that. Make your emulsion with that extra water and then add your magnesium oil at the end in the cool down phase at room temperature. Add it slowly while stirring, and don't blend it after you've got the initial emulsion. And I think you may have a stable lotion. Hopefully that's helped some people, because that seemed to be quite a big issue. And I really wanted to solve it for you. And so it did take me quite a long time to both research all of that and make it and do the substitution sheet that I've done for you. So this video has been quite labour intensive for me and has taken a week, but I really hope it's been useful to a lot of you. So if you are on my Patreon, you get all of those documents and stuff included in your patronage. So thank you for that. I'm going to end the vlog here, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, please let the room have got further next week, because I really, really, really want to get in there and make stuff again, because it's not ideal making in your kitchen and having your ingredients everywhere. I just want to organise the place. I'm so excited to organise the place. And I also want to get some of my dad's old crafts up on the walls and the shelves and stuff, because YouTube, Etsy, all that stuff didn't exist when he did his crafts, and they need to see the light of day, because I'm so proud of him. And I'm gonna make myself cry. I want that to be in the background of my videos as like a little nod to him. So it's important for me to get this room done so that stuff can go in there. So on that note, before I cry, I'm going to say goodbye. If you want to join Patreon, the link's below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.